Tuesday, December 1st, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, 30A and Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. The meeting of the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for the remote participation can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and or watch the meeting may do so either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast or on cable television channel 191 or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455 and then enter 1428 pound for the meeting number and then 12345 for the access code. This phone number will only be active during public meetings. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public an adequate access to the real proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the meeting proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. That said, I'm going to read the open statement for public hearings so that we won't have to use that but this one time. In the interest of saving time, Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with Mass Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first public hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to the abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. Okay. Now, I'm going to call for a quorum check. Mr. Barnacle?
Barnacle, present.
Steve Chidester?
Stephen Chidester, present.
Eric Gasper?
Present.
Steve Halterman?
Present.
And Ed Goodwin, present. So we have full attendance. As far as committee updates are concerned, the CPA committee met last night. We had one primary issue, and that was the Historical Commission is looking for funds to put together a project, matching funds to put together a project regarding historical homes and sites within the town of Sturbridge. Charlie presented it, and Charlie and Barbara. And we voted to for $15,000 to go into that project, providing it's approved and goes forward. We voted on it town meeting this spring, and that was pretty much it. We will not be meeting again until after the new year, unless something important comes up that we have to address. Trail Committee, David?
It's next Thursday, next meeting of the Trails Committee. However, it should be mentioned that the Trails Committee subcommittee, which meets during the week instead of on the third Saturday of every month, has been very active. And I think Tom indicated that 5 of the 7 bridges have already been restained. One of the bridges had some lumber that over the course of the last 10 years has started to degrade. That has all been replaced. A large number of trees over the last month have come down on various segments of the trails. Those have been removed. And last but not least, everything looks really good. They have been refilling an awful lot of the space that was eroded out by some of the rains. So everything is looking good on over 21 miles of trails in the town.
Fantastic. I guess next we will go to the approval of the minutes for November 17th. 2020? Do I have a motion on that?
I'd like to make that motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve those minutes.
Do I have a second?
Our second.
Eric seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor. Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Halterman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Good job. Becky, do we have any walk-ins?
We don't have any walk-ins tonight.
Okay. We are looking at 8 minutes. Becky, if you have anything to do for 8 minutes?
I do.
All right.
Under signatures, we have an order of resource area delineation, DEP file number 300-1068. That is for 9 Holland Road. That was approved at our last meeting. I provided you a draft of that. Any questions, comments?
Gentlemen, any? I have none. Looks good. Yeah. Are you looking for approval on that, Becky?
Yep.
Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Steve Halterman.
Steve
Second that
Halterman.
motion, Dave Barnacle.
Dave Barnacle seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor, Stephen Chittister?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Halterman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay, Becky? We are still looking at a few minutes.
Request for certificates of compliance. We have 2. DEP file number 300-471. This is for the Preserve subdivision, but this would be a partial for 22 Preserve Way. I did a site visit. I don't have any concerns. This lot, actually, no work occurred in the buffer zone. There is buffer zone in the back portion of the property, but no, as I mentioned, no work occurred in that. I don't have any concerns with that. I recommend approval and issuance of a partial certificate of compliance for 22 Preserve Way.
I have a motion to that effect from the board.
Steve Halterman, I move to accept that recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Sure. Eric Gaspar, second.
Second. Any discussion?
Remember what that number
Seeing none?
was?
Go ahead.
471?
471. Yeah, it's 22 is
Back in the
the...
80s.
Yeah, it's a long ways back. It's 22, so it would be at the beginning too, right, Dave? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Halterman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay.
All right. Well, so we also have, this is a local permit. It's 19-11, 24 Hamilton Road. This is for the Hamilton Rod and Gun Club. We did issue local orders of conditions for the stormwater management system that they implemented out there for part of the gravel removal permit they had with the town. I recommend for this one, we did talk about this at the last meeting. We listed released the enforcement order for the work they've done out there. I don't have any concerns with that. I'd recommend issuance of a complete certificate for this project. The only thing that wasn't completed, which isn't a concern for us here, is that they did not do the expansion of the pistol range, which was shown on the plan. So I'd recommend a complete certificate and then it add language in just, noting that the expansion of the pistol range was not constructed.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve of the plan as is, except for the pistol range exception.
Do I have a
Eric
second?
Gaspar, second.
Eric seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none. Steve, how do you vote?
I'm in favor. Steve Halterman.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, that's...
All right. I don't recommend that we start discussing anything else as there's only 3 minutes left, but there's just a couple things that are on the agenda that I don't think we'll be discussing this evening. So just to bring it up, so under new business, I had, we received a right of first refusal request for 27 Ladd Road, which is in the Chapter 61B. I had added it to the agenda. After it was added to the agenda, it was found that the request that was submitted to the town was insufficient, so they're requesting that they revise that request and provide all the materials. So I recommend that you take no action on it right now, as they need to resubmit their request per the requirements.
when is our next meeting, Becky? I should know that.
Our next meeting is December 15th, and when we do receive these, we have 120 days, and I will double check. I think we, at this point, if they've been notified that what they've submitted is insufficient, there's no responsibility of the town to act on it until we receive the additional materials, but I'll double check that.
Okay.
But like I said, we have 120 days to act on receiving the request. So.
All right.
All right.
Anybody? Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I have a real quick question of Becky. It's the Board of Selectmen that decides whether or not they're going to accept that for the town. Is that correct? Or buy that?
Correct. And all the boards receive a copy of it and are asked to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. That's what I thought. Thanks.
Yep.
All right.
And just to note for the public hearings, we have, for all the new ones on here, we have received the proof of legal ad and a butter notification that's required.
All right, great. And we are now at 6:14. So, moving to the public hearings. First one is for 615, 195, 197, 201, 201A, Charlton Road, request for determination of applicability. Noble Energy is the applicant. Scott Morrison, Ecotech representative, confirmation that no jurisdictional wetland resource area exists on or within 200 feet of the site. Okay.
Good evening. Just for the record, Scott Morrison, Ecotech. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Just moving forward, we had filed for a request for determination of applicability. There's no wetland resource areas on the site. There are a couple areas in question that are located just off-site in the northeastern corner of the site. one of which is a roadside grass swale that leads down and drops into a catch basin right along Route 20. That area is maintained, the majority of the upper portions maintained, routinely mowed by the abutting property owner, flows back towards the site before it enters into a concrete inlet and enters the Route 20 water system. That swale's been maintained for a number of years. It takes runoff from, I think, potentially parts of Route 20 and the adjacent commercial property based upon the Wetlands Protection Act regulations. Because that's been maintained, it's deemed not to be a jurisdictional wetland resource area. And then based upon review of the Town of Sturbridge bylaw, it also defers back to the Wetlands Protection Act for determination for vegetated wetlands. So we believe that would apply to the vegetated wetland aspect of it. There's also a small off-site depression, probably about 20 or 25 feet from this little area. It's it's probably about a 5 by 10 square foot area, clearly not connected via a culvert or stream to any adjacent resource areas. On Stephanie's request, after the site walk, she asked me to conduct do a test plot, so get the vegetation and soils information at that location, which I completed. Based upon the analysis, it's dominated by red maple trees. In the sapling layer, you've got red oak and sugar maple, which are both upland species. Shrub, you've got winterberry, Tartarian honeysuckle, and arrowwood. And no ground cover and vine cover would be, Asiatic bittersweet and grape. So you've got it's not dominated by wetland vegetation. Therefore, it's my opinion that it wouldn't be considered a vegetated wetland. And as such, if the commission agrees, they would issue a determination that there's no jurisdictional wetland areas on the site or within 200 feet of the site. I think that pretty much summarizes it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Becky, recommendation?
Yep. So, right. So we did visit the site. I did ask Scott to send that in. He did submit that today and took a look at it. I mean, I do agree with him. I agree that the swale along the road is part of the stormwater system associated with Route 20. Therefore, it wouldn't be jurisdictional because it is currently being maintained. And then, I agree with him on the isolated wetland too. I think that based off of the information that's been submitted that he looked at, it's not jurisdictional, and it doesn't appear to be connected to jurisdictional resource areas. So I do agree that there's no jurisdictional wetlands on site or within 200 feet of the site. My recommendation would be that it's a negative determination, a -1, not subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, and a -6, not subject to the stormwater, the Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw. One thing I would note in here that I'd recommend that we put in the determination is that would cover the area. Now, the activity, the one thing, and I think the engineers are kind of looking into it a little bit too. Now, the site, it does appear that stormwater on the site is directly enters the DOT stormwater system associated with Route 20, which the outlet of that really isn't known at this time. If the stormwater outlets into a resource area and they make a change, being the increased flow, that would appear to be a regulated activity per my discussions with DEP before on a similar situation. So I would just add that if it's found that the stormwater exiting the site does discharge into a resource area and they do make a change, an increase of flow, then that would appear to require review. So they would need to come back potentially, and we could discuss that when they find that out about the stormwater system. Regardless of that, I've seen draft concept plans for the project site, and they would be making stormwater improvements over what the existing conditions are there. So that would be my recommendation.
Discussion?
The
David?
One question. David Barnacle. Scott, do you have an indication as to where that water is coming from? In your perambulations across the back end of that property, was there any of it that was coming from ledge in the back of the property?
I didn't see any ledge, but there is definitely a hillside in the back that drains towards the property. So if you go in the back of the property, especially the southeastern corner, it goes up a pretty steep hill. It probably goes up 20 or 30 feet before it starts to drop back down to a well off-site wetland way in the back. So I think, based upon the soils, I think the engineers said that the maximum depth of groundwater was about 30 inches on the site. So I think it's a combination that you got some high groundwater and soils that are I think they're Class D soils, so that there's minimal infiltration occurring. So you do get quite a bit of runoff. And one additional thing,
I asked the question is because you do know that when the fiber optic company was purchased, one of the things that they had to do is to build a serious set of channels in order to be able to guide the water from that hillside because of beaching through the rock.
yeah, I guess that makes
that's
sense.
That's a little bit distant. You know, it's further down Hall Road.
Yeah, but probably similar soils. The other thing too, jumping back to Becky's comments, I think the engineer would gladly provide the drainage calculations to the Conservation Commission, so that you get an opportunity to take a look at those, you know, regardless of what the commission makes a decision on.
Stephen?
Yeah.
Any comments?
I have no comment.
No.
No.
Eric?
No comments.
Steve?
Yeah, I agree with Becky's recommendation, and I think we definitely want to see that the stormwater data that they'll produce for us.
Okay, I don't have any comments. Do I have a motion?
Public
Steve
comment?
Halterman,
Oh yeah,
sorry.
public comment. Thank you. Jeff?
Yep, public comment?
Jeff?
Yep.
Public comment,
Yep.
please.
Hello, good evening. Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak to the Charlton Road request for determination of applicability for Nobel Energy this evening? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the Noble Energy application this evening? There's no one on the line, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jeff. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, Steve Halterman. I move that we approve the recommendation and that it would be recorded as a -1, not subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, and a -6, not subject to the Sturbridge wetlands bylaws.
Eric Gaspar, second.
Are we including in that, this is David Barnacle, are we including in that, Steve, the fact that you want to have the stormwater calculations provided?
Yeah, that's probably a good place to put it, Dave. Thanks. So, yeah, I'd like that added for the record. We want the stormwater calcs.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, Steve Halterman?
Steve Halterman, in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar, in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, we are now at 6:25. Eric promised to sing us a song if we got too early. So,
Come next meeting, though, we're going to be doing 10-minute increments, so we'd be right on time.
You're right.
Does that mean no songs?
No song.
No songs? Oh, man.
We used to have a rule: if you showed up to a sales meeting late, you had to sing a song. And one election day, I showed up late because I was voting, and I busted into the meeting singing the Star Spangled Banner, and people were coming from all ends of the building wondering what the heck was going on. So it's not beyond me to do that.
They weren't used to patriotism?
No, they were just. I think they were just surprised that the bald man was bellowing throughout the halls.
Becky, do we have any 4-minuters?
I don't think so. However, under old business, DEP file number 300-959, that's also 9 Holland Road, an enforcement order. We're actually going to postpone that discussion and continue that to the next meeting. We just didn't receive the mitigation plan in time to have it reviewed in advance of the meeting. So I've already let them know that. We'll have that on the December 15th meeting. I was provided with that mitigation plan today.
Could we do Cedar Lake Drive? Shouldn't be long. Why don't we do that?
Sure.
To Cedar Lake Drive.
Yep. DEP file number 300-971. This is 2 Cedar Lake Drive. This is an enforcement order on here for discussion. Just as a reminder, this enforcement order was issued in February of this year. There was a concern with erosion on site. There is property is on a stream and on the lake. They did have an open permit too. We've been working with them throughout. They did work to address our concerns, and we did put this discussion on hold to see how the project did during the growing season. We did perform a site visit yesterday. The site looks good. It's been well stabilized. They did add some shrubs along the stream as requested. Erosion controls were still up. The lawn area was seeded. They did say that they need to probably seed it a little bit more this spring. We did discuss with them leaving the erosion controls up over the winter and then taking them down in the spring, reseeding, putting the straw down. But things looked really good out there. So there's 2 things to discuss this evening. One would be releasing the enforcement order, which I would recommend at this time. And then I can follow up with them in the spring again. In addition, I need to notify them. They still need to close out their old permit, so I'll remind them of the request for that. And the other item is there were fines that were issued for this after they were issued the enforcement orders. There wasn't compliance at first, so there were some fines issued. Right now, because there's 2 property owners, therefore each we had to submit fines to. There's an outstanding balance. The fines were $1,950, which would have been $975 to each property owner. Due to their working with us and coming back into compliance, I'd recommend rescinding the fines at this time. That's all.
Discussion?
Well, this is Eric Gaspar. I think that's awfully generous of you, Becky, given the nature of the conversations that went on very early in the finding process. I don't know that I would be that generous. So that's just my comment.
Stephen Chidester, or anything?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Eric just said. And I think we should have some discussion of the fines. I'm not sure. Maybe we can continue this after our public hearings.
Okay.
Continue the discussion about the fines.
We can certainly do that, and it sounds like we should. So let's just continue that and go to our next public hearing. and we can come back to that. Any approval to do that? Okay. David?
Well, I'm 100% in favor of what both Stephen and Eric have just indicated.
Yep. Okay, Eric, you're all set with continuation to later on this evening. Steve Halterman?
Yes, I'm okay with that also.
And Stephen was the one that recommended it, and I agree with it too. So we are now to 501 Main Street, 630. Notice of intent, DP file number 300 What's the number? You said you had all the numbers back?
No, I didn't say that. This one does not have a file number yet. I had all the legal ads and the butter notification. Yeah, no file number on this one. Not yet.
No file. Okay. Town of Sturbridge is the owner, the applicant, and then P. Parent, CHA Consulting, representative, installation of a municipal parking lot. Okay. All right. So
do you want
Becky,
me to put the
you're
plans
on.
up? Do you want the plans up
Sure.
for the discussion? It might be useful for the engineers. Jeff, can you allow me to present, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'll actually I believe we have Pete Parent on here. If you want to start and go over the project.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Pete Parent with CHA. Becky, if you could, why don't you switch to sheet 2? I think that's probably the most appropriate plan for discussion here. So this is an existing developed lot on Route 20 that the town has purchased, and as part of that purchase agreement, the existing structures and pavement were demolished. We're proposing to install a 25-spot municipal parking lot. Overall, the impervious area that we're proposing is less than what was previously on the site. And then we have some grass swales on either side to direct the water to the proposed rain garden to the south. And we're also installing a couple of catch basins in the parking area to capture and provide some additional pretreatment before discharge to that rain garden. The rain garden provides our required water quality volume and also our recharge volume. And we're matching or reducing peak flows through the 100-year event based on the detention that it provides. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I think it's a relatively straightforward project.
Okay, thanks, Pete. So just my comments on this. I mean, I've been working with the engineers. This is a town project, so I've kind of been involved in the design process of this. Happy with the plans. Some of the things we talked about. I mean, this is a redevelopment site. We talked about kind of what are some of the best things we can kind of do here to really meet the standards, despite it being a redevelopment too. And what are some low impact development we can use? So we looked at some different options about using some pervious pavers versus pavement, and there's some concerns here for that. Porous concrete for the walkways, the addition of swales. We asked for the rain garden in the back and also for the catch basins to provide some pretreatment. So as you can see on here, you know, we've got plan includes there's deep sump catch basins in the parking lot where most of the flow is contained. Some of it does have sheet flow directly into the rain garden. But it appears that a majority probably goes to the catch basins first. So we've got a total of 93% TSS removal with the deep sumps in the rain garden. And then we also have those grass swales on the side. You can see in the plan that the sidewalk on one side comes down further. In the future, we do plan on having a trail system that goes through the back towards the Quinnebog River with an eventual bridge back there. So that's why the sidewalk does come down further for that potential connection in the future. I went through and I looked at the rain garden. I like the planting choice there. They did include an O&M plan on the sheet set. My one just recommendation would be that we have like an individual kind of O&M sheet with the log that can be provided to the DPW for future maintenance, just so they can have that, so they're aware. One of the things that I think is important here is looking at potentially not using salt in this parking lot because it does go directly to the rain garden. So maybe that could be included in the O&M plan. What else? I think I've covered everything there. So the only thing is, right, we don't have a DEP file number tonight. I anticipate that we should have one at the next meeting. Like I said, I've gone through this, looked at the drainage analysis. I'm happy with this plan. I would recommend approval once we have a file number.
But you'd recommend you take a continuation right now? What? Continuation
well, if you
for
have
now?
any comments, yeah, I mean, I think if the board has any comments or questions, that they should provide that to the engineers, you know. But yeah, definitely we'll have a continuance.
David, is the Trails Committee up to speed with this?
The Trails Committee is moderately up to speed with it, yes. It's ahead of the plan because they're sort of waiting until the connected trail is done between Stallion Hill Road and Holland Road.
Okay.
That's what will kickstart this thing into real operation.
This is
All right.
This is Robert Travis. Hi, I'm the facilities
Beg your pardon?
manager for the town. Hi, I'm the facilities manager for the town. So I've been working with CHA as the owner representative for the staff, and we've also been working with Tom Chamberlain and the WPI students. They've been looking at the connection in the back along the property and the river. So the Tom has been sort of the liaison between this part of the back part of the project here and the work that he's doing with the students currently.
Good. Good. Thank you. Any other comments?
I have a question for our engineer, Mr. Parent. What size rainstorm per hour or what size rainstorm per day have you used in your projections? Because I noticed that a series of notes indicate a 72-hour corrective action in terms of the rain garden. It's going to take 72 hours in order to dissipate the rain event. What if you have two rain events in 2 days instead of one rain event every third day? And is this a 2-inch storm or a 3-inch storm or a 4-inch storm that you have entered for your numbers?
So we run an analysis for the 2-year, the 10-year, the 25-year, and the 100-year storm events, which, if you bear with me here a minute, I can get you. So that the 2-year event is about 3.2 inches in 24 hours. And the 10-year event is about 5 inches in 24 hours. The 25-year event is 6.1 inches in 24 hours.
Okay, that's enough.
And finally, the 100-year is 7.8 inches in 24 hours. The 72-hour number you're probably referencing is the amount of the drawdown time that we have for recharge and infiltration practices.
Yes.
As you were saying, if you get back-to-back storms, your storage volume is depleted. So one of the requirements from mass stormwater is that these types of facilities have to drain back to dry within that 72-hour period to provide, some level of protection for a back-to-back storm event. So I think that may be the number you're seeing in the recharge volume in the calculation is we have to prove out that based on the soil conditions and the bottom area of our basin, we are going to achieve drawdown of the water that's detained in our structure within that 72-hour period.
So that's precisely what my question was relating to. If it's 3.2 in 24 hours, and if on the third day you had another 3.2 storm, not only would the rain garden not be empty, but the rain garden is liable to be overflowing. I'm curious about whether it needs to have a larger area.
Well, certainly, designing to two-year level storms back to back is beyond what's required. But if we were trying to do that, yes, the basin would have to be much larger.
Well, one of the things that I think is of concern is that the storm sizes have increased recently and don't look like they're going to decrease in the future. And number two is, over time, that there is going to be siltation and other materials that are going to be partially filling that basin. And so would it not be wiser to have the basin slightly oversized at the very beginning and therefore give you more longevity with it?
Certainly, the basin is oversized to what is required currently. We're providing 600 cubic feet of storage, where about 300 cubic feet is required for the recharge volume, and about 400 is required for water quality. And we are providing recharge, and the drawdown is at 55 hours, versus the maximum of 72. So it is oversized slightly now. But I think getting to a point where we could handle two-year events back to back would require that basin to be very large.
Anybody else have any comments? I think we can fail on the side of just slightly large in this case, since it's located next to a wetland. I mean, it is at the edge of a wetland. Any expansion of a basin, we're going to be worrying about whether it's a tidal pool or not.
It's not really a wetland, though, Mr. Chairman. It's a river.
And it's a river with in that area, it's a marsh. Well, how do you guys want to go? We have to continue it anyway. Anything else that anybody would like to speak to on this?
I'd just like to say I like the plan personally. This is Stephen Chittister.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Rebecca's comment about the no salt. So make sure that makes it into the orders of.
Well, on a municipal parking lot, that's a
No, I have no comments. I'm good with it. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah. Yep. Jeff?
That's the first I've heard of a no salt application on this parking lot. We're going to have DPW clear this in the wintertime as we do the other municipal lots. So that's a conversation we need to explore next time.
So I guess, Pete, for rain gardens and O&M plans, is salt an issue?
So the species that we've picked out are reasonably salt tolerant. So I think from a vegetation standpoint, you wouldn't have an issue. It's more of a concern on your folks' end about if you get large events, obviously you are going to get some runoff exiting this basin that potentially could have, salt in it.
Okay. Steve Halterman, anything?
Yeah, I like the plan. That's a thought about the salt. Jeff brings up a good point. Maybe there could be a low salt requirement, or there could be a sand only requirement. That is worth further discussion.
Well, one of the things, if I may.
Okay. All right. So.
Yeah.
Jeff, go ahead.
No, I'll just save my comments for next time. That's fine.
Okay.
Well, can I ask a question? I was just going to ask, what is the concern? Is there going to be an operational challenge given the way that we clear the rest of the municipal lots to isolate this one with special circumstance? Is that the issue at hand, Jeff?
Yes. Yes.
Eric, we're not going to, we're not going to go back and forth between. Okay, all right.
Public comment?
Figure out in your own minds. Public comments, Jeff.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 501 Main Street application? Hello, is there anyone on the line that would like to speak to the 501 Main Street application? There's no one on the line.
Thank you. All right, so continuation to the 16th. All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
David Barnacle in favor. Stephen Chidester.
Stephen Chidester in favor.
Eric.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Did I get everybody?
Steve Halterman in favor.
I felt like I missed somebody, Steve.
It's okay. I'm just small and insignificant.
Sensitive. Turn that mic up. All right.
So that'll be continued to December 15th at 6:55. 6:55. So they're aware.
All right, we are now at 645, 118 Paradise Lane. Request for determination of applicability. K. St. Laurent, owner applicant, retaining wall repair. Becky?
All right. So I'm not sure that, so I'm going to cover this one. I'm not sure that the property owner is coming on for this one. So this is a request for determination of applicability. It was continued from the last meeting due to an issue just with the legal ad posting. So we've been to this site. We had a tree removal a few months ago out here, and we viewed the property with there's a wall out here. We had some, discussion about it. They kind of pointed it out and told us what they were interested in doing. So this is a minor repair to a shoreline retaining wall. They're also proposing some work right behind the wall in order to fix some of the rutting that's occurring back there and for drainage. The scope is small enough where it's sufficient because it's a minor repair that it can move through the RDA process. Work is proposed during the lake drawdown. I would recommend approval of this through the determination process. I would recommend issuance of a positive 2B, no resource area delineation approval as part of this, positive 5, meaning it's subject to our local bylaws, and a negative number 3, that can proceed without the filing of a notice of intent with the following conditions. So I would recommend that work only occurs during the drawdown period for work on the lake side of the retaining wall. They'd have temporary erosion controls in place below the wall during work. And then if they're phasing it, then they can move them up to the upper section during that time. And then to encircle any material stockpiling on the site with erosion controls. No stockpiling or equipment to be located below the wall.
All right. Discussion. David?
No comment.
Eric?
No, I'm good with the project.
Steve?
I'm good with the project.
Stephen?
Yep, no comments. I'm good with the project.
Yeah, and I have no comments. I'm good with it also. Do I have a motion to approve?
We want the public
comment.
Here if there's any.
Yep, public comment. Jeff?
I want to know what Stephen Chaperone thinks about these proceedings.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak to the 118 Paradise Lane request for determination? Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak to the 118 Paradise Lane application? There's no one on the phone. Mr. Chair?
Thanks, Jeff. Seeing no one on the phone, do I have a motion to approve?
Steve Halterman, I move that we approve the recommendations of the agent, including the orders of the conditions that were stated.
Do I have a second?
Eric Gaspar, second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we can vote, or we can hold it off and have Eric sing that song he was going to do.
Did you guys close the public hearing?
We're going to vote to close the public hearing. David, motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second. Eric Gaspar.
Second. All in favor? Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Now we're going to have you, Steve, could you make your motion again, please? Because we made it with before the...
Right. I move that we accept the recommendation of the agent for the approval of this project and include the conditions that were stated.
Okay, Stephen?
I'll still second that.
Okay, a second, Eric seconds. All right. Any discussion on this? All in favor. David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
And Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. So that's unanimous. And we are now at 6:53. We have 7 minutes.
Eric, do you have a 7-minute song?
I don't know that I do, but do we? Can we pick up the other conversation that we started regarding the enforcement order?
That's a good idea. Okay, so we were back to the enforcement order on 2 Cedar Lake Drive.
I'd like to make a suggestion. This is David Barnacle. That we not cancel it, but rather we reduce it to, let's say, something like $250 a piece. We gave them that not as a carrot. It was supposed to be the stick. But now what you're suggesting, if I understood Becky correctly, is we break the stick and throw it away.
We looked at the site on Monday, and the site looked really, it was well maintained. There were plantings and some grass along. It was clean. They executed what we were looking for, I believe. What I was looking for. Let me say that. And with the results that we've had from the courts on Mr. Dunn, for example, which I don't know if you've heard the news from that, but they did not give him a fine. So I think to take this back through on a situation which we basically, it looks to me like we have the situation resolved, that we should just waive the fine and move forward. That's my opinion. Going to court, spending the town's money. I didn't get the level of negativity that perhaps some of you did on the early going, but I
certainly got some good feelings about the fact that they will protect that level of the lake from going forward. From the conversations that we had on site. Steve, you were there. What did you think?
Yesterday it looked fine. Becky and I, for whatever reason, we were the ones that did a site visit one time, and we caught a lot of grief from this from the applicant here. I was not happy with the disrespect that we got. But I would ask a quick question of Becky. And given the timing and everything, did I'll call it the threat of fines or penalties move Mr. Kerboy to address the issues that were our concern?
I believe so.
I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe that's the way we operate. I don't know. It was disappointing that Mr. Gunn's fines were taken away from him. Court oftentimes does that. They oftentimes miss the nuances of what goes on ahead of time. I saw that happen several times when I worked for DEP. That the judge was it wasn't clear to the judge as to what exactly happened. So I don't know. I go along with whatever the rest of the commission says. We got the repairs done, and
Or for slightly mixed, we can do what David recommended, which was to continue the enforcement order for another season and take a look at it. We don't have to take it off.
what about the penalty?
I see a lot of.
I mean, there's two issues.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, two issues. I don't know what you guys want to do. I gave a strong statement on how I feel, but I don't want to influence anybody else.
I guess the way that I look at it is this, the fact that at any point our agent didn't feel safe as part of this process is my sticking point. However, I do generally like to go along unless I have a strong opinion one way or the other with the agent's recommendation, because I trust in her professionalism and expertise. So if she is recommending that we waive the fines, I would go along with that. But I have a real problem with the fact that that there was ever a situation where we had a member of the town staff feeling uncomfortable because of an enforcement order, and now we're going to rescind the fines. So that's my 2 cents.
That's good. I don't disagree with it.
Mr. Chair, this is Stephen Schaefer.
Yeah.
So,
Stephen.
I tend to. I don't want to waste the town's money either in a court fight. I don't know what exactly what's entailed in that. I don't understand why the judge would rescind the fines as was discussed. Was there any explanation given for that we could learn from? Because I'm not for completely waiving the fines. I like Dave's suggestion of reducing it. I was going to suggest reducing it to half, but I'd be willing to go down to the $500 fine. I think that there should be some penalty for this particular situation. That's my personal opinion, but I don't want to waste the town's money, fighting this.
Becky, can you answer Stephen's first question?
So what I was told by town council was that the clerk magistrate dismissed all the fines, given that she viewed what she viewed as good faith efforts to bring the property into compliance. So that they did for Mr. Gunn, they did work to address the enforcement order and bring that back into compliance.
So the same argument could be made for this site that it's now in compliance.
Correct.
Despite the fact that it took 5 years to do it.
Yeah, right.
And a lot
Not
of
for this
abuse
one.
to this commission. Yeah.
Two-seater didn't take 5 years. You're thinking about Dunn, right?
Yeah, I think he's talking about John.
I'd like to make a
I mean,
motion.
two-seater had.
Go
Go ahead,
Becky. Go ahead, Bex.
Oh, I was just going to say that, I mean, two-seater had an open permit. I don't know, we can't say that they were not in compliance for the whole time that they had their open permit. I mean, we got involved in, late winter when we noticed the issues with the site stabilization.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was like that the whole time or not. I don't know that I could say that.
No, but it did not meet the plan.
Right, at that time, right.
True. Yeah. Eric, what were you going to say?
I was just going to make a motion that we release the enforcement order at this site based on the site visit and the agent's comments. I'd like to make a secondary motion or in addition to that to also waive the outstanding fines due to the complicating information of a potential reversal upon appeal to the clerk magistrate. But I would like to get some clarification made from town council as to how we can proceed forward with issuing fines that are actually going to have some teeth to them. So I don't know if I need to make that as two motions or as one, but yes, Jeff?
I'll wait on the chair. That's fine.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
The issue with the fines isn't that they lack teeth. The issue with the fines is he was in compliance when he got to court. And courts on municipal issues will always, the goal of a fine is to gain compliance. So if Mr. Gunn had not complied and you gave him all kinds of warnings and said you have to do XYZ by XYZ and levied a fine, and when it came to the drop dead date of the fine and he still was not in compliance, that's a different look from the court than someone who took a long time but ultimately did comply and you fined him anyway. Those are two different perspectives. So I think you just keep that in mind. If you have an applicant who refuses to comply through all the efforts and all the different, end of dates or whatever you give the applicant, and then you go to court, you have a greater chance of having your fines enforced than taking someone to court who ultimately complied.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Back to you.
So anyway, I don't know, do I need to make those as two motions or as one? But
make them as one, and we'll see where we carry ourselves.
so I guess I'll reissue the motion that we release the enforcement order on 2 Cedar Lake Drive, DEP file 300-971, and dismiss the fines. Huh?
That should be it. And then after that, you can request that we talk to town council about enforcement, et cetera, because it doesn't have any specific issue with that particular property. It has to do with the general area of fines.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll stop with that as my motion then for now.
And I'll second that motion. David Barnes.
Discussion.
Would you state the motion again? I'm sorry, Steve Halterman.
Yeah, and just motion that we release the enforcement order on 2 Cedar Lake Drive pursuant to DEP file 300-971 based on the site visit from last Monday and the agent recommendation.
Thanks. And we
All
have
right,
a
we're
second
voting
on
on
that.
it. Or a second. All in favor? David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
And Steve?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right.
Now I'd like to make a second motion that we rescind the fines outstanding to the Kerr boys and Mrs. Drogue based on the enforcement orders at 2 Cedar Lake Drive.
And do I have a second on that?
Steve Halterman, I'll second it.
Discussion. Hearing none, we'll go to vote. Stephen?
Stephen Chittister, I'm opposed.
Steve?
Steve Halterman, I'm in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar, I'm in favor.
David?
David Barnacle, I'm opposed.
Ed Goodwin, I'm in favor. All right. We are now at,
Should indicate to the public, Ed, that the motion passes.
the motion passed.
All right.
We are
Now
now
we're-
at, well, but I think I think that Eric's point that we should get specific clarity. I mean, send these things in when they're half baked. I don't know that the judge won't turn us around and tell us to go back and bake the pie.
Well, I think
But,
Jeff's point is well served by us maybe introducing the idea of fines earlier in the enforcement process to get the project in compliance and much quicker, so we don't have these outstanding items that go 5-6 years into the future like it did with Mr. Gunn.
Yeah.
So we kind of created our own harm there.
Absolutely.
Ed, Jeff, needs something.
Jeff, go ahead.
It's a little different, but it's along the same path. You know, having done property maintenance in 4 different municipalities, the key to all of this is consistency and sticking to your own timeframes and sticking to your own or else's, right? That's the key to property maintenance. That's the key to enforcement of these things. You have to set goals and you have to set timeframes and you have to stick to them, or provide, correspondence that extends timeframes or gives conditions or anything else. It has to be a very deliberate process. And I understand with Mr. Gunn, you had a series of years go by where things kind of, didn't fall into place. But to do fines, you have to be very deliberate, you have to be very specific, and you have to be very rigid with your timeframes and with your processes, or it's not going to work. If you're going to use fines. That's all. And it goes for junk cars, it goes for, dilapidated houses, it goes
All right.
for garbage in the yard, whatever it is.
All right, we're now at 7 o'clock, 100 Charlton Road. Notice of intent, DEP file number 300-1083, continued from November 17th, 2020. M. Kroger, Variet, MT, Sturbridge, LLC, CIM Group, applicant owner, J. Panter, Kimley Horn, representative, repair of a failed retaining wall and associated site work. Gentlemen, you out there, somebody?
Yeah, this is Phil Kaufman from Kimley Horn and Mark Kroger from CIM.
Mark, hi. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Very good.
Good. How are you? Thank you.
Good. Becky, you want to
Sure.
start
So
this
this
off?
was, yep, so this was continued from the last meeting. We did not have a DEP file number, which we received. You also had a couple questions in regards to the wall, the mesh, and the nailing. They did provide some of that additional information. I'll let them kind of elaborate on that. I did, with the DEP file number, the only comment that was received from them was that they recommended extending the erosion controls, which ended just within the wall area, to include the access road. So I've worked to draft an orders of conditions. I did include that as a condition. I think that was a good catch from them because we do have the access road does slope down towards this resource area and towards continues down further as well. So I think that's a good inclusion, small inclusion to add into the project. Like I said, I'll let them go into the details about the mesh. I looked at everything. At this time, I would recommend approval of the project. I did add some conditions in the draft permit, which I gave to you. I think that it would be advisable to have some period of monitoring the wall, and the plantings. Plantings would be typical. I was going to recommend that it's the duration of the permit, so it would be 3 years, which would give them at least a couple growing seasons to make sure everything takes there, and have an engineer take a look at that wall and make sure that there's no additional shifting. Just kind of monitor to the progress made there. One other item they should include with their overall site O&M plan, the need maybe to have someone, a professional person, checking on these walls. There's some other walls on the site too. Have that included in there as part of their yearly monitoring activities they do, and that could be included. They are required to send us yearly reporting for their O&M activities. So it's some way that the town can keep an eye on it in the future. And that's all.
Yeah, appreciate that, Becky. So again, Phil Kaufman from Kimley Horn. Appreciate everybody's time. I'm fourth time is the charm. We're optimistic tonight. So we appreciate you guys dealing with us along the ride here. As Becky said, DEP did have one minor comment to extend our silt fence and our BMP. We've already addressed that comment, and we've resubmitted the revised erosion control plan to both Sturbridge and back to the DEP. So we're totally on board and comfortable making their recommended change. The last commission meeting we had, there were a couple of questions. The two that we had jotted down was about design life, which we were able to go back and talk to GSI, and they confirmed that the design life is 75 years for the type of wall that we're proposing here. And the other question was in regards to the wire mesh, and so we were able to provide Becky some sizing. I have it in front of me. It doesn't really mean much but it's 0.138 inches is the diameter of the wire. We sent a lot of photos, which I think actually speaks more to it, looking at the size, but it's a very heavy duty, high quality wire mesh that we feel very, very comfortable about. And in light of, Becky's introduction here today, we'd of course be happy to monitor both the landscaping and the wall, making sure that the landscaping takes and, whatever other conditions that Sturbridge deems appropriate.
All right. Becky, or David, do you want to go at this? Have you got any questions?
No question. David Barnacle.
Eric?
No questions.
Stephen?
Just a comment. I appreciate all the work that was put into this, and I think we have a great solution. I just want to absolutely, for the record, make sure that there aren't any large diameter mature trees that are going to be removed as part of this project. Just want to get that on the record. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I can address that real quick. So, we provided a landscape plan. The plan is that we were able to minimize the disturbed in the area that we need to clear. The guess the only caveat or the only comment I would make is as we go out with GSI and look to mobilize and kind of do our final on-site meeting, if there's anything that does stand out, we would, of course, talk to Becky and figure it out if there's anything that we think would get in the way. But again, I mean, going into this, you guys have the landscaping plan, which shows what we intend to demo, and there are no mature trees. So unless there's something that absolutely can't be done because of our equipment, or something that just absolutely has to be reconsidered for constructability, and then we would, of course, loop Becky in right away.
I appreciate that, Philip. That what we're trying to prevent is we've had situations before where a decision is made kind of on the spot. Suddenly you realize that the tree's got to come down in order to get the piece of equipment where you want it, and that decision's made and the tree's cut, and then we're notified after the fact, or we go out there and find that it's happened. So we just want to prevent that from happening. So thank you.
Yeah, understood.
That's all for me, Ed.
Okay, David?
No further questions.
Eric?
I'm good.
I had a couple. First of all, I think Stephen asked, and I don't know if I wasn't listening or I didn't get the answer. The block that have fallen in are going to be removed from up above, or are they going to be left there?
We're, to be honest, we're happy either way. I think after the last call, or discussions with the commission, there was some talks of let's not clear anything additional that we wouldn't otherwise have to clear. Now we did build in essentially an allowance with GSI. I mean, our contract with GSI is for them to remove and dispose and haul off any of the blocks. So again, I think that could be whatever Sturbridge prefers. Otherwise, we can make kind of a discretion choice on site, and that discretion would be: are we going to have to clear anything more to remove a block? Can we move whatever is easily accessible and leave whatever to prevent any additional clearing? But we're fine either way. And we got that built into our contract with GSI. We were kind of proactive in our thoughts to say, hey, if the town wants this, we'll move these out.
Anybody on the board have a problem with that?
Yeah, my comment would be I'm okay with them leaving it if they have to clear additional trees to remove them. But, if they can remove them easily, then, or well, not easily, but if they can remove them without any additional clearing, then I would prefer that.
Yeah, I would too. Becky, that would be. I would like to see them remove them, but I don't want them to go down in there after them, because if they do, it's going to be trees will have to be removed. Second, a question that I asked and I didn't get an answer. Maybe you guys missed it. Is the wire welded or is the wire woven?
Good question. I might have missed that last time. I believe I have to clarify and get back to you.
Okay. I don't know how you guys want to proceed. Want to see if there's anybody in the audience to wants to talk to the subject before we move forward. Jeff?
Yep. Hello, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 100 Charlton Road Notice of Intent application? Hello, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 100 Charlton Road Notice of Intent application? There's no one on the public line, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Hearing that, would like a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Steve Halterman.
Second.
Eric Gaspar.
Eric Gaspar, second. Discussion.
All right, hearing none, all in favor. Steve? Steve Halterman in favor.
Steven?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move that we approve the project as indicated by Becky with her orders of conditions intact. David Barnacle.
Steve
Eric
Halterman,
Gaspar,
do I have a
second.
second motion? You have several.
Got a third, fourth.
Okay, so, yep. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, I'd like to add that the block be removed, that they possibly can be lifted from up above as a part of the project to get them out of there. But if they can't be, then they'd be left as derelicts of the sea. I don't know how the rest of you guys feel about that.
That sounds good.
And
I would agree with that.
And I'm not sure they necessarily would have to be lifted from above. It's possible they could access them from below too. I mean, just however, whatever way they have.
All right. Are we to the point of a vote?
Do you have a second for the motion?
Yeah, we had a second to the motion. That was discussion.
Right.
Yeah. Stephen?
I'm in favor. Stephen Chittister.
Steve?
Steve Halterman, I'm in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
And Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right. Motion passes. What do we got there?
I don't know, Mark.
Are we now?
Yeah, Mark's at home. Sorry. He's just getting so excited that we just passed.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Again, appreciate the commission's time on this, and I know we've been here
No problem,
a few times and going through, and we'll keep everyone and Becky in touch as we progress through this project. Hope to get it done here shortly.
Thank you guys, very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
New business, Becky? What's next?
The only other new business is the 2021 meeting schedule. We do have everyone on the line for the 30 River Road discussion under old business. Do you want to go to that?
Then we should do that then. Let's go to that next.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. You want to start it off, Becky?
Yeah, just a quick summarize. I mean, this is a continuation from our last discussion a few meetings ago. We were waiting. The commission had requested the revised plans. We did receive stormwater as-built plans and drainage analysis for review. We did perform a site visit yesterday morning in the rain, which was very productive. I see there's kind of four kind of important categories for discussion tonight. Stormwater, status of the restoration areas. We did ask, what the status of that is. So I'm not sure if Scott had a chance to look at that, but he can give us an update on that. Discussion of wetland impacts and a plan for the temporary dam. So that's kind of what I see important to kind of go over this evening. I don't know if the project team wants to kind of go over some of those things.
Sure. Just for the record, Scott Morrison from Agrotech. As Becky said, we've got we provided stormwater calcs and an updated as-built plan. Thanks for the commission members and staff that was able to attend the site visit on Monday. I think the weather was quite inclement, but I think it was worthwhile seeing the site in the rain and seeing the stormwater structures as they were functioning. I think that was very important. We've got Corey Broder on the line. He can answer questions regarding that. We can kind of, if you want, I can go through and then we can kind of jump back to these areas. So we've got the stormwater. There's substantial stormwater improvements compared to what was approved. There's a series of number of additional basins providing additional treatment. So as members that were able to see, there's substantial additional treatment as a result of these changes on the site. So I think it's all a really good improvement compared to what the site conditions were prior to this construction project. We were also asked to look at the plantings to go back and do an assessment of what was required and what was planted. Based upon my calculations, I ran through, there was required 153 saplings and 258 shrubs that were required to be planted as part of the restoration work. I got copies of receipts and added them up, and it appears 257 saplings and 197 shrubs were planted. So it was a little bit light on the shrubs. However, there's about 100 more saplings than were originally planted. So a substantial increase there. And I think some of the commission members that saw the shrubs were kind of small. So I think, obviously a sapling is much better than a shrub, especially in this particular instance where the commission was looking for some additional tree plantings. The other item is erosion control. For the vast majority of the site is stabilized. My suggestion there would be to have Chris, the environmental monitor, maybe provide some guidance to remove some of the erosion control barriers in portions of the site as appropriate. Moving on to the dam, Corey Broder and I and Philip Moreau, the property owner, need to kind of discuss exactly what he's looking to do for the dam, duck pond dam that is, whether that be replaced, partially repaired, or left in its current state where the dam's been removed and the stream's restored. So we need to do some discussions. We need to certainly get back with the commission soon with an answer of exactly what we're looking to do there. And then, kind of the evaluation of the stream. Obviously, we've had some substantial rain events. We had almost 2.5 inches of rain yesterday. There's been no turbidity issues, no erosion issues. They've been monitoring the downstream stream and downstream pond. There's been no issues there. So that kind of my suggestion is kind of keep an eye on it, make sure that everything's functioning as designed, and kind of, monitor that as it goes by. Part of that will also be kind of included in the dam discussions once we figure out exactly what the plans are and what we come back to the commission with specifically for that duck pond dam. I'd be happy to answer questions. And again, I said that Corey Broder, the engineer that put together the drainage analysis and as-built plans, is also on the line, so he can hopefully answer some questions that the commission has.
All right. Who wants to start it off? Stephen? Any questions?
I want to wait and hear what Becky has to say.
All right, Becky, you want to give us your input?
Sure. All right. So, starting with stormwater, I think that we're seeing improvements over what was happening on the site when we issued this enforcement order. We know that the project changed throughout the duration of their work activities. We had some major issues. This spring, I think we worked together really well to address that. They've got the site stabilized, which is, like Scott said, we're not having the erosion issues that we were seeing because of that. And there's been substantial improvements on the site for the stormwater, which, I think address the changes on the project and make some additional improvements that were probably needed. Some of the areas that I had seen that were of bigger concern to me were what was outlet 1 near the bridge, and outlet 6, which we did stop at. But all the other areas on my recent site visits and yesterday looked pretty good. Granted, we were out there at the beginning of the storm yesterday, but I've been out there in some significant events this fall, and things have looked pretty good. Outlet 1, I was a little concerned with the flow there. I don't think it's that much of a concern right now, but it is something that could be monitored. I do agree that, not jumping a little bit, but some of the erosion controls in the site can definitely come down. Outlet 1 made me think of that because there are bales in the stream that should be removed. So I think that it'd be advisable that I go out with them. If you approve them to take the erosion controls down, I can make another site visit out there with them, and we can kind of look at each specific area and see, which ones definitely can come out, and then which ones maybe should stay. Or, there's some areas of sparse grass growth. Some of these straw wattles, when they come out, they should get broken up and kind of put on there for the winter. So I think that those areas are kind of good. Outlet 6 is an area that has been a concern of mine since the spring. This is where a pipe was put in, which was not part of the original project. There was stormwater flow that was directed down towards the meadow area to infiltrators. It was piped directly into another area. So it's a big increase of flow that's gone to this direct discharge. When I first went out there, we had talked about it. Mr. Piappi and I, did say, all right, well, I recommended we kind of pulled that one back too and added a BMP, like a 4-bay that could provide some treatment, some recharge potentially and some treatment, or a small basin area there, because there was a lot of flow there from that upper section area and the area, the Paul Revere area that's right there. So, the times I've been out there, there's a lot of flow. So I think that could be a good improvement that would mitigate for the change to the stormwater system on the site. And I believe that was the site 905 when we were out there, or I think it's shown as 902 in the plan. So I don't remember exactly, but that could help with some of the volume that we're seeing over there. For the restoration areas, Scott, thanks for giving those numbers on that. I guess I would just recommend for the commission that, we had a very specific planting plan for specific areas. It's just, did the planting plan follow that plan for those areas? I know you're saying there's extra trees. I don't know if his receipts are for like the whole project or not, but I think that we just had very specific areas that we should make sure got planted correctly. And if those areas have a few more trees and shrubs, then maybe that's not a big deal. But I think someone should look at each specific area and say, yes, area 2 is, done correctly, or no, area 2 is missing 30 shrubs or something like that. I think the commission should have that looked at specifically for each area, since we were very specific working out that plan. As far as the temporary dam and wetland impacts, we did talk about this a little bit out on the site. That dam was meant to be temporary, so it does need to come out. I do agree that now is not the time to do that, but I think that the project team can put together a good plan to have that removed. I don't think it's advisable to install a new dam. When the dam breached, there was some concern about the structural stability of it. And obviously, removing dams is something that, is promoted through the state. So that's why I recommended if it's not in a great condition as is, then remove it. So, I think that putting that back into a perennial stream could present some permitting challenges anyways, and these things can be done. We've done this on our own property, so if it's done correctly, I don't think we're going to have any downstream impacts. Scott can put together a phased plan to have that slowly lowered and make sure that we're stabilizing as we go, and return that back to a stream. So that's my recommendation for that. If you think that's a new dam in there is a good idea, then that's up to you. I just don't know how that would work out with permitting. With that, and Scott did mention it, something we kind of talked about in the site. I mean, I've mentioned, there's, sediment in the stream. I think that can be looked at and should be cleaned up. But that could be something that, as part of the, plan to take the temporary dam out, that could be part of that plan and have some of that sediment, cleaned out at that time. Also, just go back, there was a couple things that, Ed, you noted on the site you wanted me to remind you about. One was that the site, the 905. The other was there was the impervious milling surface by the pool area. I did look at the plan. I think that's partially within jurisdiction. The whole area might not be. So I just wanted to remind you of that. One of their requests is...
You say 905 or 902? You said 902, and then you said 905. Which is it?
I thought when we were on site, you read off 905, which I may be wrong. I looked at the plan, and it said 902 there. So that's why I said both numbers.
Oh, okay.
It's 902.
I don't know. I tried to look on mine, but my plan was so wet it melted. So it's a wad.
Yeah. So I think that, right. Part of their request tonight is to take the erosion controls down. I recommend that we can take most of those down, and I can go out there and figure that out with them. The other is they also want to stop doing, we've had the weekly monitoring since the first enforcement order out there. I think they're looking to have that reduced or eliminated, so it's something else to take into consideration for the winter. It could be removed. I think that, there should still be some, monitoring during events by a qualified person just to, make sure things are looking good out there through the winter. I think that was most of my notes.
All right. Steve Halterman? Yeah, I go along with a lot of, I guess, all of Becky's recommendations, but I think a couple of them that I think that we should make a statement of, well, we probably want to make a statement about all of it, but one question is, have all the infiltrators been installed? It appears that they have not been. And we need an answer on that. I mean, we have the plan. We know how many were supposed to be installed. It appears that they have not been. So I think we need a response from the applicant. You raise a good point about the planting plan. I mean, it's nice that they planted more trees than they had planned, but they planted less shrubs. We really don't care. What we care about is we had a planting plan that we put some thought into and we agreed to that. And so I would say that we should insist that the planting plan that we approved be adhered to. And if there's some extra trees in there, so be it. But I think that we should insist that the planting plan be followed. Second is that Becky made some really good recommendations about outlet number 6 and changing it to allow more infiltration, and I think that's critical. I think those are very critical areas in that stormwater discussion and recommendations. Those are my thoughts.
Eric?
Yeah, I agree with what Becky had said and what Steve just said there. I thank you, Scott, for getting an answer for my question from yesterday on the number of plantings. I probably should have been more clear as to the number of plantings per zone based on the planting plan, so I apologize for not asking that question fully. But I think it is important, as we've indicated, that the plantings aren't just in total or aggregate, but they are in the proper place based on the planting plan. So that's all I really had to say.
And I'd happily go back Just for the record, Scott Morrison here. I'll gladly go back.
Scott, wait. Let's go through everybody, and then you can go. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay. Stephen, do you want?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that Becky said and the other members. I would like to comment about the dam. I guess that was an open question for us. At this point, I would be in favor of it being, converted to a stream. So basically not having the dam, but as Becky stated, that's something that has to be done very carefully and controlled, so that there aren't any impacts off-site.
Oh, it was done once and failed.
I also, what's that?
It was turned into a stream once and it failed. It washed back out, and then they put the dam, the blocks back in.
Right. So,
are
we talking about the Duck Pond Dam?
Yeah.
Right.
It took the Duck Pond Dam out. They came to the commission, and the commission voted to allow them to remove the duck pond.
But didn't it fail because of massive release from the lake?
So we don't know.
I'm not an engineer. I can't tell you why it failed.
But Stephen's correct. I mean, the boards broke. Something happened. It breached. So all the water released, and then we were working on it after the fact. So it didn't happen in a controlled way.
Right. I guess the other concern I have is there's a very large pine tree that's adjacent to where that dam is. So I'd want to make sure that that's not undermined or, lost. But that's, again, my comment would be if it can be done correctly in a controlled manner, I'm fine with that being converted to a perennial stream.
My comments. First of all, I was very impressed with the level of work that's been done up there. Really, from when I was last on site, which was a long time ago, I admit, but it really looks good. There's been an awful lot of improvement done. I think that we're really making progress, no question about it. But there are some specifics, and Becky's mentioned most of them. First of all, the duck pond. Duck pond is right now is silting into the stream, and Scott can't see it, but it's obvious to the naked eye that continues to be an area of silting. So that's throwing what has been thrown at it. The water's going in and around and behind it, and in the rain, and it's continuing to wash. So we need to stabilize it somehow. We have to have a plan and go forward and have it done as soon as we can in the spring or summer of next year. So that's one area. The outlet, and I'm going to call it number 6 because it's in the area of 902, 905. That is also just exiting directly into the pond, and that is silting and will continue to silt unless something is done, a drop inlet is put there or something. Pioppi didn't disagree, and he knows which one it is. We discussed it while I was there, so that's another. The other, other than that, the millings, that parking lot or whatever you want to call it is not on the plan, and that has to be addressed. And I guess that the rest of the things that Becky has said need to be addressed. But I want to really say that I think you guys have come a tremendously long ways, and
I was pleased with a lot of the stuff that I saw out there. So, I mean, although it sounds like I'm back on the same things, it's probably because those are the things that haven't been addressed. But that's all I've got. Beck, anybody have any other comments? We want a continuation?
Yeah.
How do you want to handle this, Becky? Scott, go ahead.
This is Steve Halterman.
Steve, okay.
We've thrown a lot of things out. I think what would be appropriate to me is that Becky make a checklist, and then the commission has an opportunity to approve that checklist, and that it gets submitted, and those items have to be addressed. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. David?
I agree.
This is David Barnacle. I don't understand, Steve, why they need a checklist. They've had the same issues for literally months. They know what the issues are. Get them fixed. Ed just went over them. Becky just went over them. Some of you guys just went over them.
Okay, if they were taking notes, that's good. So they're going to answer to us whether or not they've added all the storm scepter, the infiltrators. Or do we say we want all the infiltrators that were on the plan, we want them put in? I mean, see, there's a difference there. So maybe
Right.
the first step is that we get that question answered, and then we go from there. I agree with you, David, but it doesn't seem like things are happening. So what do you recommend, Beck?
Scott?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Let Scott speak.
I think we had a good, productive site walk the other day. The commission asked for some questions to be answered. I think you're looking for some of them to be refined, such as the planting plan. You're looking for more detail in that, which I can certainly provide. Where I just kind of spit out numbers and had I had the opportunity, I would have broken them up into areas. But I can certainly do that, provide that to the commission. And then I think a lot of these, especially with the dam issue, is we've got to kind of put together a detailed plan and come back to the board with those details. So I think a lot of those will be hashed out at that point. And I'd say, we, in the next few weeks or so, figure out a game plan after Corey and I can speak with the property owner, come back with a more detailed plan for the commission. But I think all these are just kind of more information or some refinement of some of the existing things on the site that we can certainly provide.
Mr. Chair? This is Eric.
Yeah, go, Eric.
Scott, can I ask Scott a question directly?
Sure.
All right. So, Scott, I'm going to ask it as direct as I can because I think people have asked it 3 times and we still haven't gotten an answer. How many of the infiltrators have actually been installed on the property? Do we have a number?
I think Corey might be able to answer that better, but it's my understanding that all the infiltrators were installed per the plan. There's a big infiltration system that's located behind the kind of in the quad area as you pull in where the main building is. That whole interior area's got a whole series of infiltrator systems. There's also a second infiltrator system up in the Meadows area that, I remember being on site when they were installing that. So it's my understanding that was installed, but we can come to a definitive decision. As I said, I'm not really that involved in the stormwater, but we can look into it and come back with an answer for it.
Well, if Corey's on the line, Corey, do you have an answer for that?
Hi, this is Corey. I don't have I was obviously not there when they installed them, so I can't see beneath the ground right now. I think what we were going to try to do is seek a certification from the contractors who installed them that they were installed. The only thing that I do know is down by the Yogi Circle, which is over by Route 15 over there. The trailers were not installed over there. They were dry wells that were installed of equal volume. So they were proposed a set of infiltrators down each road, and instead now there's 8 foot diameter dry wells that were installed in place.
Okay.
So they have concrete structures in place with equal volume of the small infiltrators. But the other ones, my understanding is they all were installed per the plan.
Good.
So,
David, you have a question? You're moving.
Ed, this is Steve. Ed, this is
Okay,
Steven
go ahead.
Chester. So,
Go ahead.
I thought the question was that outlet 6 is not being sent to an infiltrator, and that we need to address that because there's a substantial amount of flow from outlet 6.
Yeah, outlets 5 and I believe it's 5 and 6 both end up ultimately discharged to the pond. The difference is that it was captured. There's a steep slope on the site that goes up to the rear portion of the site. There was an issue with erosion on that slope because you've got a long distance where the water can run for would have run hundreds of feet before it enters a catch basin. The problem there is when you've got gravel roads, the more distance that it picks up speed, the more erosive it is. So in the process, that was captured in catch basins and then routed down. So both discharges ultimately go to the pond. It's just the mechanism of how they get to the pond is slightly different. So the receiving water hasn't changed, but just the routing has.
Well, but Scott, just to clarify, though, it would have gone to the infiltrators, and some of it would have been recharged there versus the direct discharge. So I think what they're just getting at is that maybe there should be some way to try to recharge that volume that's being directly discharged into the resource area now, not going to the infiltrator and having the ability to recharge first.
Okay. We can look into that.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, I'm not.
But
I'm opposed to the direct.
David's comment versus Steve's as to the ones that we will look into this. And David's comment is that you guys should know by this point in time what we're looking for and be doing it. So how do we get a complete list of the action items so we can get this thing done?
Well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, can I ask one additional question of Mr. Broder?
Sure.
Did you suggest, Corey, that in the infiltrator out towards Route 15 that you were just referring to, that it was switched out for something else? And yet, is it on the plan the way that it is right now? Or is it on the plan with the infiltrator in it?
So, Corey Brody, Leonard, again, through the chair, the infiltrators were not installed down in that area. They're shown on the as-built plan as dry wells. So that, as they're shown, I tried to indicate in red to make it clear what the as-built conditions are. And so instead of discharging 2 dry wells, they're an equal volume of infiltrators. There's an equal volume of dry wells. Just that, well, they function same. Just they're concrete structures instead of the plastic structures with equal volume.
Thank you.
Yeah, Corey, just to go along that same line, the plan, the piping, it goes over to, I'm going to call it 902, 905, and exits directly into the lake. It comes all the way across, and it has catch basins that drop into it, but it doesn't have any. It seems that the entire flow is hitting the lake. How would we end up with that as a design, and how can we correct it?
So my thought was we would cut back the outlet and install a small or bay detention basin similar to what was installed at outlet 4 and outlet 5.
Mm-hmm.
To try to
Okay.
get back in the ground, hold it back
Yeah.
in additional sediment. Yeah.
Yeah. How do I move this forward? I guess we're at a point where we either need Becky to, Scott, why don't you give Becky a listing of the things you think you need to do in order to make us happy?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I can make a suggestion, I've been taking some detailed notes as we've been going through this discussion. So
Yeah.
why don't I suggest I'll circulate an email to Becky tomorrow morning with a list of items that need additional information. I will provide that to Becky. I will have her comment on that. And then once she's satisfied, we can take that internally and then provide responses.
Great. Is everybody in agreement on that? Stephen, you okay with that?
Yep, I'm good with that.
Steve, you okay?
Yeah, as long as the responses might, in some cases, be a plan. Again, that outlet 6, I think that we're looking for a plan. I think everybody agrees to that, that we're looking for a plan to address that issue.
Yeah, I think everybody does. I think everybody on site agreed, including, All right. Eric, anything further?
Nope, I'm good.
No. Corey, Scott, I think it's really, as I say, I think we've got some serious issues to resolve, but I think you guys have made some amazing progress, and hopefully we can continue that curve. So get this project over with. All right. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time and your ability and willingness to come out and walk the site yesterday. I think it really was very helpful for everybody involved.
Are you thanking us for our ability?
Well,
I don't know. Eric and I weren't too pleased.
So.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, Ed.
Take care.
Ed, sorry, it's Becky. Are you okay with me going out there and working with them on areas of erosion control that can come out?
Yes, I thought, I don't see it. I'm not okay with that. I just don't think that I'd like it any other way.
They also indicated they were going to have their environmental scientists go out with them, Ed.
Yeah. You're not happy with that,
I mean, that's up to you guys if you want to leave them up for the winter or not. And they have to have them removed.
Well, you'd have to take a look and see what kind of stability that there is in the area where they want to remove them.
Right.
I don't have a problem with you making. I don't have a problem with you making a judgment call. Does anybody else?
Okay.
Nope. I'm good with that.
Any other?
Good with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'd ask what the basis for removing them would be. Other than the fact that you'd have to maintain them, is that, which I understand. But if we still have some, well, okay, Becky, you're going to know where there's potential erosion issues and leave them up. And the ones that aren't doing any good, might as well take them out. I guess I agree.
Right.
I talked myself into it.
Good.
You're very persuasive, Steve.
All right. Thanks,
Well,
Scott.
see, the
Corey.
SWIP says if you've got them, you've got to maintain them. And if they're not doing any good, and then that's just an effort that they don't need to do. I'm looking at the SWIP.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We're on to Becky. What's next?
All right. We are on to our 2021 meeting schedule. So we've had some discussion about meetings, agendas, public hearing times. So first, I just wanted to talk about, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. I can put it up on the screen if we need it, but 2 options for meetings next year. All right. Do you want me to put it up on the screen? Did everyone look at it?
Sure, put it up on the screen. Yeah.
All right. Well, I can do one at a time here. So let's see. All right. Well, let me find them. Okay. So let me go out just a little bit. So we put together, and Erin put all these together and did a lot of research on this, put together two options. The second column, the second and third column don't really matter for you. This is what would be provided to the public. This is continuing with meetings on a every 2-week schedule. The only thing we'd have to do on this one is look at the summer schedule, because you usually go down to one meeting in the summer, and if you want to do this. But this is what the meeting schedule for next year would look like for meeting every other Tuesday. Now, and I don't know if Eric knows this, but so we used to meet on Thursdays, and it was an every 2-week Thursday meeting schedule that we had, similar with the going down to one meetings in the summer. And when the town went to these late night Tuesdays, we looked at switching it to Tuesday, per my request, I guess. But so we've been alternating with the planning board on Tuesdays, which has mostly worked out unless a holiday comes up. And then we don't have any ability to switch to the following Tuesday or work around it. We usually have to just cancel the meeting because we can't. Planning board meets on the other Tuesdays. So I started thinking about this in, the every 2-week meeting, because we've had a lot of issues where people have not been able to get us revised materials or get things in time for our meetings, which has presented some challenges and long discussions, which, we've been working to do things to address that, a 7-day policy to submit materials. Otherwise, we're just going to continue, which we know then presents some challenges, because if we have to skip a public hearing, we've got some, downtime, and I guess no one wants to hear Eric sing, but no, I'm just kidding. So we started looking around, and there's towns that meet every 2 weeks, and there's commissions that meet every 3 weeks. Thinking about meeting every 3 weeks is, it gives people, you have a meeting, they have to work on revisions. It gives them time to submit those materials before we have a next meeting. I think it kind of makes for a more productive meeting, and helps people kind of move forward with the process. So if they had a little extra time in between the meetings, they had 2 weeks to submit something, it's probably more likely that they and their project team can work on that and get that in time, versus we have a continuation for 2 weeks, they don't have time to get it in, then they get continued, and now they're looking at a month. So it also helps us in the office, because there's some real challenges with doing the meetings every 2 weeks with the volume that we've had, preparing for and following up and issuing permits from the last meeting. So it just seems like a little more time helps out project proponents, and it helps us be a little more efficient here too, I think. So, I'm okay with whatever you want to do. The difference with the meetings, where's my notes? Oh, I lost my stuff here. There it is. I think it's right. So we would have, 18 meetings on Thursdays versus 24 on Tuesdays. But we also need to take away the 3 we do in the summer. So it's more 21 meetings, 21 versus 18 meetings. So it is a few less meetings. So that's what Tuesday would look like. Like I said, minus, getting rid of the holidays.
So what do you recommend?
Now, Thursday, Well,
what do you recommend? Yeah, let's look at this Thursday schedule.
mean, well, and it's up to you guys too. I mean, you have schedules and other responsibilities, so I don't know, if that would work. And then if we, say we had a snowstorm on, Thursday, November 18th, we could have a meeting the next week. Of course, then we still have one in 2 weeks from that, but we wouldn't be looking at, a month between meetings, which can become a challenge.
However, Becky, aren't we pushing the envelope with the 21-day requirement?
That's only if they file like on the last day, and then you could just have them sign a waiver. I mean, we currently, when I started, we had a 3-week filing deadline requirement for filing. If we continue in it 3 weeks, I mean, they have to give you approval for a continuation beyond 21 days. So they would be giving approval for the continuation at that meeting anyways.
Well, why don't we just take it with them, come back?
What's that?
What? I say, take it and look at it and see which makes more sense for each of their schedules. Come back with.
Yeah. Well, another option too, I was going to say is, to meet every 2 weeks on Thursdays as well. If you're not you don't want the 3-week thing. And then we don't have to worry about the issue with alternating with planning board too. Now, the only thing is, it is December 1st. We need to start at least a January deadline, because people are going to be filing for those upcoming meetings. So we need to get that out for the public ASAP. So even if you just decide to take this and look at it, for the next meeting, we definitely at least need to set our January meetings, which we can do and leave as is if you prefer.
So I don't know if my opinion makes much of a difference here, but I like, if Becky feels like it is much more efficient for them in the office to go to that 3-week staging, and will reduce the number of continuances that we're going to have and can provide us greater efficiency. And if ultimately we don't take the summer break, if you will, we're only losing 3 meetings out of the year, and the ripple effect of that is only going to be 1, maybe 2 additional public hearings at any one given meeting typically. I think it probably makes a lot of sense to look at it as an efficiency play. It will also reduce the amount of site visits that need to be made. So, we'd essentially be looking at a reduction of 6 active days to the commission, which, it is something that comes into play some days for me that I just cannot make everything. So having 6 less obligations throughout the year will free me up to have more flexibility there. So especially if it's going to provide greater efficiency to Becky and to the office, and it's going to, in theory, reduce the number of continuances, which should make us more efficient as a commission as well. I'd be all in favor to spreading that out an extra week. And if we find that it's not working, then it's 12 months and we move back to the every 2 weeks. But I like looking at things from an efficiency standpoint. If Becky feels like this is more efficient, I'm all for it.
Yeah, one other thing I didn't think to just mention too is that typically, but when we have our first public hearing for people, we don't have a DEP file number either. So if there was a little more time, it's maybe more likely that we'll have DEP file numbers too, because that's this year, especially with COVID. I mean, we've had a lot of continuations because we don't have file numbers.
I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I have to throw a little bit in, because you guys, if you're on a 3-week schedule and you miss a meeting for 6 weeks. you're really out of the loop. If you don't get the DEP file number, you don't have the DEP file number for 6 weeks. The reverse happens to you also. I have no problem with trying a new system. If you have a feeling, Becky, that you'd like to do that, I think the best thing to do is to try it. But you can paint something and find that it's really not the color that you thought it was.
Sure, but that's an argument to never change anything. And I think,
I agree. I'm saying change it. I'm not saying don't change it. I'm just saying that, to sit here and first you said we weren't going to take summer vacations. Why? I want a summer vacation, Eric.
Well, no, what I mean is we don't skip the meetings. We can plan accordingly. I'm going to take my summer vacation too, but I have a schedule that's 12 months
checking on you. Well, whatever. Want to go to 3 weeks?
Ed, this is Stephen.
Go ahead.
Ed, this is Stephen. I just want to comment that I'm good with the concept of moving to Thursdays. However, I currently have a conflict Thursday nights, so I would have to resolve that, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. So that's something I can work on before the next meeting. But if we plan to move to Thursdays, I'm going to have to figure that out. So.
All right. So there's a reason for you
can have an answer.
Figure it out, or not. It's part of our decision.
Yeah, so maybe take the next couple of weeks and think about it. And for now, we'll just continue with the first and third Tuesday for January.
Good.
Does that sound good? Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right.
Yep.
So also with the meetings, where's all my notes? All right, so we're trying to find some other ways to be a little more efficient so we can have more effective meetings too. So, all right, one of the things right now, and this isn't really a major thing, but we're looking to change is we have a lot of issues with people being able to file their legal ads in time, et cetera. This is an extra step for them after they file. So what we've seen, a variety of towns do different things. What we'd like to do, and we'd have to work it out and make sure they agree to it and stuff like that, is that when we receive their complete application, we will still draft the legal ad, but we will provide it directly to the newspaper with the obligation that the applicant still pays for it. Like, we can have that part of our application that they sign that. Because we've had a lot of public hearings where people forget to file the legal ad, and there's deadlines which you have to do it, and then they get pushed from their meeting, or we have to then draft them a new one, or they try to get into the newspaper, so we have to draft another one. And then we also have to follow up with them before the meeting, especially now because they're virtual, to make sure they've done it. So it's a lot more work for us that I think if we switched and do it that way and just have them sign something saying they'll pay to the newspaper, I'd like to change it to that. So I'm not sure if that's something that you really care about or not, but I just want to let you know and see if you have any comments or concerns about that.
Are you going to be able to get the information from them in a timely manner, or so that they don't put the onus on you?
Yeah. Once they file.
Right now, you're saying Right now, you're saying they're not doing it in a timely manner, and yet you think if they deal with you, it'll be all right.
Well, no. So they file a complete application right now. We draft them a legal ad. We give it to them, give them instructions, tell them what they need to do, and they're kind of forgetting to do that. So right now, how we change it is they file a complete application. Once we have a complete application, we draft the legal ad. We give it directly to the newspaper with the understanding that the applicant's still paying for it. We'd have them sign something in our application package. We've seen some other towns do it this way, and it seems like it helps. because we've had a lot of issues.
What towns have you seen do it?
Weston, Newton, Spencer. Also, Spencer does it a little differently, but they draft and they publish the legal ads for them too.
Okay.
And then,
Anybody
what
have any
happens
comments on
also.
I
As
guess
soon as I hear Weston and Newton, I get nervous. Go ahead.
I guess the way that I look at
They're
it,
very efficient.
if they have difficulty with placing the ad, are they going to have difficulty paying for the ad, which is going to cause another problem in another area? I mean, I don't know that that's our problem, but it seems like it might not solve the issue.
But I think it will solve the issue. I mean, their obligation to pay the newspapers on them. I think we just have to check with, the newspaper and doing it that way, provided we have something signed and we give them a copy of that.
I also think, Mr. Chairman, this is David Barnacle, I also think that there might be an additional bonus to our office placing the ad directly. And that is after about the first month, there now is a rapport between the newspaper and the commission, and that means that it's not a brand new face. They're not going to wait for the check here before they do something about it. The newspaper will act on it right away. And I think that that's far more vital than having 62 different people get newspaper ads in the newspaper. Maybe a small bonus, but at least we're establishing a better rapport with the customer. Because now you're giving the customer one more service that they don't have to do.
Gentlemen, why don't we let them try it and we'll see how it works.
Sure.
Steve, I can't argue.
I agree.
I agree.
They've come up with a solution to the office running, and they're the ones that run the office. So I agree that they should give it a shot.
Good. All right.
Thanks.
What else, Becky?
Yeah. All right. So the other discussion we had at the last meeting was the public hearing times. So we did, as Eric suggested, our next meeting, we're going to have them every 10 minutes. So we'll try that out. But another recommendation is something that maybe we could try is getting rid of the individual preset time. Now, we talked about this a little bit the last meeting. So when someone files with us, we draft their legal ad. We give them a public hearing time at that time. When we have a continuation, we have to give them a date and time at that meeting. So we give them, obviously, the date of the next meeting and then the next public hearing time that we have on the upcoming agenda. Now, some of the issues we had was that, we have people that need continuations or whatever happens, and we have that dead time, which has come up recently. But, in the past, we've had a lot of filler things, which has been good. So we changed it to every 10 minutes, which we can try. One of the other things that I think that maybe we can try afterwards, because now we have a little bit of time, is, like I said, maybe getting rid of those preset times and see how Eric's option with the 10 minutes works. And then also thinking, now that we're drafting the legal ads, we can wait and we can do those once we know what our agenda is too, which will help us dictate the flow of the meeting to some degree. The only hard part is, and I don't have what the deadlines would be in front of me for, exactly, but when we have new applications come in and then we have a meeting, you can't necessarily at that time pick and choose how you're moving things around. But the 10 minutes, I think, will help. And I think we should try that, but I would like to then see how that works. And if not, maybe change it to not having individual hearing times. Now, the reason for that would be, and we would be fine with that, what you do is, for people's legal ads, because people have to notify abutters of when their meeting is, everyone would be 6 o'clock at that meeting. Now, what people would be referred to look at is the agenda when it's posted for the order of them. So public hearings or determinations would be A on our agenda, and then each one would have a number. And you go through that order that way. We've seen that with a few different towns, and what made me actually realize is I filed an RDA in Spencer for somebody. I helped a family member, and that's how they did it. They didn't give an individual public hearing time, and that way they could kind of work and dictate the flow of the meeting. Everyone looked at the agenda. Yeah, people won't know, when exactly they need to come on, but we don't, well, we were pretty good this meeting, but most of the meetings we're off pretty far. So you have a lot of buildup of people on here. So, I mean, I'd like to look at that option, but I think we should feel out the 10-minute interval and see how that works out with, especially now that we're going to do the legal ads and with the meeting flow. And then if that doesn't work out, maybe look at the other option. I think there's pros and cons to all of these things, but I think that being able to have a more effective, efficient meeting is the goal, and it's in everyone's interest. So maybe if we have to explore how that's going to happen, I'd like to try that.
Okay. Any comments from anybody? I think they agree. Just you agree. I think having no time and everybody showing up at the same time is an absolute nightmare. And I've seen it when we've had backlogs because we weren't doing the right things, and having 5 or 6 applications in the room with all of the abutters, it's not a pretty sight. So I'd be hesitant on that one, but we can try anything. We'll go with the 10 minutes and see how that works.
My comment would be, this is Stephen Chittister. So I've been on the commission for a little while now, and it seems like we rarely have dead time. We almost always have something to fill in. And so I also would be opposed to having no time specified, because I think that means that there's going to be an awful lot of people waiting. There's going to be people paying for, their consultants to be waiting. And I don't think that's a service to the public.
This is David Barnacle. I agree with that, and I think that we have not given the 10-minute test through trial yet. I think lining them up 10 minutes at a time is appropriate, even if we do end up with 2 or 3 in the background, because then they get to hear the entire part of the process. It's not like giving them 7 o'clock and, as Ed said, having a cattle herd inside of the meeting room.
All right. Becky, anything else?
No, that's it. I think, like I said, there's pros and cons to both. But I think, let's try these changes with the 10 minutes and the legal ad, and we'll make sure that everything's legal on how we do that, with the newspaper, et cetera. And then I think that's going to help us out, be a little more efficient. And we also have that 7-day policy in place, which I got to post on the website and make people aware of. But I think that will help us moving forward.
Good.
There's a lot of administrative tasks with these applications. So if we can find a way to be a little more efficient here, it'll help us have time to do a lot of the other tasks we're supposed to be doing. So.
All right. Do I have a motion to?
Are we all set, Chairman? Before we adjourn, I'd like, because you indicated we were going to talk about fines at some point, what I'd like to do is to have everybody take down 2 sentences, a suggested change for what we have in our handbook regarding fines, if that's approved by the chair.
All right, I have no problem with that. Bring that to the next meeting?
No, I'm going to give it to you now so that you can think about it for the next meeting.
That's what I'm saying. We'll bring you the change for the next meeting, what we'd like to change.
I was going to make a suggested change so that you have something on paper to start with. So you need to be able to write it down.
Okay.
fines will be issued for 13 days. If not paid, go to court. Fines to continue up to the court day. And the reason that I picked out 13 days is because that brings the total to under $1,000. And if they haven't paid by that time, according to the indication that the PA gave us at the very beginning of this meeting, they should be indicated that they're not going to complete the project according to the way that the plan had indicated that it should be, or according to what the Conservation Commission thinks it should be. And if we bring it to court at that junction, while we're still fining them, we have a far better indicator as to whether it has a chance in court or not. But I don't want to make it a vote tonight, Ed. I want people to think about it, because maybe there's far better wording.
For 13 days, and then the fine will be how much?
No, the fine will be exactly as we have it in the handbook. The fine will be 20 and 50 and 100 for the first 3 days, and then 100 per day after that. And by using a 13-day number, that totals $970.
Okay.
So it's just under $1,000.
Right. Yeah. All right.
Something to think about.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm waiting for Stephen.
Stephen?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Steve Halterman,
All right.
second.
Good job,
Steve
Steve.
Halterman. Thank you, gentlemen.
In favor.
Good
Have a
night.
great
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
couple of weeks. Thank you, Becky. Thank
Have
you,
a good
Jeff.
night.
Thanks, Beck.
No problem.
No,
Just for the record,
Thanks,
it's
Jeff.
8:27.
Jeff, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.